Welcome to Simply Debbie Sue's Southern Whispers. Step into a world where front porches hold secrets, faith carries folks through the hardest days, and the mountains whisper stories only the heart can hear. I invite you into tender moments, gentle humor, and the kind of Southern warmth that feels just like home. Hi, friends. Welcome back for another story. So let's just get into the introduction of this story. Some stories begin with sunshine and quiet mornings, but others start with a little girl, a box of crayons, and a whole lot of imagination. And sometimes, just sometimes, that imagination gets ahead of the rules. This is the tale of Susie Mae Thompson, who loved to draw so much that one day she forgot to ask permission before turning her world into a canvas. This story is called Susie's Big Piece of Paper. Susie Mae Thompson woke up with her head full of ideas, bright, colorful, wiggly ideas that needed to come out right now. She hurried to the kitchen table, her box of crayons rattling like a treasure chest. She reached for her stack of paper. Gone. She checked a drawer. Empty. She checked the counter. Nothing. She checked behind the cookie jar, under the placemats, and even inside the dog's food bin, because you never know. Not a single sheet. Susie let out a sigh so dramatic the dog lifted his head in concern. With no paper to save her imagination, she wandered outside and plopped into her swing. The chain squeaked as she rocked back and forth, dragging her toes through the grass. She squinted at the sky, hoping for inspiration. And then she saw it. The side of the house, smooth, bright white, and shining in the sun like the biggest, most perfect sheet of paper she had ever seen. Susie sat up straight. Her eyes sparkled. Her mouth curled into a grin. Before she could talk herself out of it, she dashed inside, grabbed her favorite blue crayon, the one worn down to a perfect angle, and ran back out. And then she began. She drew a sun with eyelashes. She drew a cat wearing rain boots. She drew a butterfly bigger than her head. She wrote her name in curly letters and added stars, swirls, and a potato-shaped horse with a very enthusiastic smile. Susie hummed as she worked, lost in her own world, until she heard the screen door slam open. Susie Mae Thompson. Susie froze mid-scribble. Mama stood on the porch, eyes wide, mouth open, hands on her hips. She looked like she had just discovered a raccoon in her pantry. Child, what have you done to my house? Susie swallowed hard. Mama, I ran out of paper. That does not mean you draw all over the siding. Mama's voice was loud enough to scare a bird out of a tree. Mercy alive, Susie Mae, this whole wall is blue. Susie's lips trembled. She hadn't meant to make Mama mad. She just wanted to draw. The house had looked so inviting. Mama marched closer, still fussing. I can't believe, Susie. You know better. This is going to take all afternoon to clean. Lord help me. But then she stopped. Susie was standing there with her little blue crayon, shoulders slumped, eyes big and watery, and Mama's anger softened just a little bit. She sighed long and slow. Baby girl, you should have come to me. I would have found you some paper. Susie nodded, wiping her eyes. I'm sorry, Mama. I just had ideas. Mama pressed her lips together, trying not to smile. I can see that. They spent the afternoon scrubbing the house with warm, soapy water. Susie worked hard, even though she kept pausing to admire her artwork before wiping it away. Mama didn't fuss anymore. She just shook her head and muttered, Only you, Susie Mae, only you. When the wall was clean again, mostly, Mama went inside and returned with a brand new stack of paper, thick and bright and taller than a sandwich. Susie hugged it like a newborn kitten. That night, as the sun dipped low, Susie peeked out of the window. If she squinted just right, she could still see the faintest hint of blue crayon on the siding. And she smiled. Because even though Mama had yelled, and even though she had to scrub until her arms were tired, it still had been a day full of imagination, and a lesson she'd never forget. So the reflection of this story is, Susie's adventure reminds us that creativity doesn't always fit neatly inside the lines or on the paper we plan to use. Children see the world as a place full of blank pages waiting to be filled, and sometimes their enthusiasm spills over in ways that surprise us. But there's beauty in those moments. They remind us to laugh, to breathe, and to remember what it felt like when the world was one big canvas. Susie didn't mean to cause trouble. She simply followed her imagination to the biggest paper she could find. And maybe that's the lesson for all of us. When inspiration strikes, don't be afraid to see the world a little differently. Just maybe keep some extra paper handy. I hope you enjoyed that story this week. Come back next week for another one. May these stories that I have written wrap around you like a well loved quilt. May they remind you that God is near, hope is steady, and joy often comes softly, like a whisper on the southern breeze.